Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. I want to paint these parts, but they keep outgassing. They've gotten oil down into the casting itself. So I'm going to bake them and dry the oil out. I'm going to set them at 250. And set them for 15 minutes. I bought this little oven to melt plastics in, and it works quite well. But it also is going to do a good job of heating these items up so that they'll drive the oil out of them. Now I just let them cook. It's been in there about 15 minutes. And the vise body has gotten up to about 200 degrees. Depends on where the section is. The heavier sections are a little cooler, so it's going to take a little while for the heat to soak in. You can see that on the thicker sections cooler. On the thinner sections, it's a little warmer. Also depends on where it is in relationship to the heater. I think I'm going to move this one back just a little bit further over the top of the heater. And we're going to let it run for another half hour. Because the sides of the box are at 250. But the things that we're trying to heat aren't going up at the same rate as the box, because the box is really thin. So we'll have to give it some more time. It's been in the oven now for half an hour. Just starting to come up to temp. Once it makes temp, it's going to have to sit there for half an hour to make sure that I get temp all the way down through the inside of it to make sure I've boiled out all the volatiles. 250 is enough to drive out all the oils, but not enough to change the temper of the steel. Gonna need a little longer. 5 coats, 3 of primer and 2 of color. Now I have to do some cleanup because the tape didn't cover. That's okay. We'll move the paint booth out of the way. And get the table cleared off, get the bench cleared off. I might have been better served by putting bluing on this, because even though the paint worked, it was a colossal pain. I'm not sure the bluing would have worked any better, but you know, you can always hope. And we will try that in a future project. Big difficulty was the casting. The casting is very porous. It is a low grade of cast iron. Lots of blowholes in it. So it kept weeping oil. And weeping oil out is never good. Now the bluing would have an advantage. I could blue this surface. As it is, paint on that surface will scrape right off. Well, it's clean. And the paint is on there quite well. I'm going to leave it for a few more days, just to let it set up better. Being risky, but I'm impatient. Needs to be cleaned up, but it looks very nice. One of my nicest vices. If you can have a nice vise, I guess you can. I finally got the casting to take paint by painting it twice, stripping it off with acetone, and then painting it with this flat white. Flat white was the only stuff that didn't want to fisheye on me. Now there is such a thing as fisheye eliminator, and I've used that on cars, but it breaks the gloss, makes it so that it's flat. So flat white has fisheye eliminator in it. I was able to bake the casting in a little electric toaster oven and bring it up to about 250 and let it sit for half an hour. I didn't want to go much higher than that. I didn't want to take any of the temper out of the casting. And that sweated most of the oil out of it, but it still had holes in it. And holes cause the paint to separate. The surface tension makes it try and pull away from the hole. So I ended up painting it 3 times with a primer. That finally got it so that it filled in and would paint up to the holes. And then 2 more coats of this, and it covered up and sealed. It's a nice, thick, glossy finish. Might chip easily, I don't know. But I think letting it dry and harden up, setting it in a warm spot, probably is a good thing. So this one, unlike the handle, I'm actually going to sit on top of the ductwork and let it bake on top of the furnace ductwork and dry out and bake that paint. Try and take a page from Scout Crafter. See what I can do. Now this, I polished up using the buffing wheel. But this is polished up pretty good. I could go through and stone this down and run it over the sanding block and get that shiny and smooth, but it's a working surface and this is a working vise. I'm not going to do that. It does look nice though. Well, I got it set up on top of the ductwork and it set there for a few days and harden up, and it should be just fine. If you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching. This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the US or 16 in the European Union, without the express written permission of the parents or legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.